Leanne, one of the things we didn't get a chance to talk about because we talked about so many things on the podcast, but
We sure did.
I we didn't get to books. I'm passionate about books and reading, and of course, you talked about writing and being the writer that you
Mm.
are. Do you have time for reading for fun?
Mostly I read scripts
Yeah.
or very short books and audiobooks. I listen to a lot
Mm.
of
Oh, do
audiobooks.
you?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so you get it in when you're driving or working out or
Hmm.
something. Okay,
Yes.
what are your go-tos? What are your genres of choice?
I really like philosophy
Okay.
and theology. Really reading a lot of Richard Rohr on contemplative theology, which is basically this non-dualistic mindset to how we view the world and people around us,
Mm.
and kind of like everyone is invited to the table, and how do we work within community, and what does love look like in expression. And so that's been, something I've really been listening to and kind of pressing into. I feel like we live in a very dualistic society that
Right.
cares about being right and wrong rather than working together and bridging those differences and finding a common unity. So it's been very good for me.
And we're in Pride Month now as
Mm-hmm.
we are recording this. And you mentioned gender identity there in the podcast
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. Obviously, that's important to you. It's an evolution in itself, isn't it? Don't you find? And
I do.
I'm wondering, has that been over your entire adult life, or when would you become sensitive to it? At what point in your life?
Honestly, since I was very, very little, I don't know that there was a time like that I remember before this where I was like, oh, I want to be a boy. Like, and I'm serious. Like, I remember, and I've talked to several friends about this, other women, and they've had these experiences where they're like, oh, I tried, I was like, I'm going to pee standing up, like, see how that goes. And I remember just like, and my dad, he was very, very good. And he's like, yeah, Leanne, he's like, you can do all the things that boys can do. Like, God made you a girl. And like, and that was so powerful for me. I remember like wearing swim trunks through second grade swim lessons. And my mom was just like, she doesn't have breasts yet. It's not hurting anybody. Like, she
Right.
feels comfortable in swim trunks. And it was just like my parents were so supportive of like, this is who she is and this is how she wants to express herself. She's not hurting anybody.
Mhm.
And I just really love doing the activities and watching shows that were, like I said, considered in our culture male, or
Hmm. Hmm.
things that boys did, which is so sad,
Hmm.
because there are a lot of very protective, powerful, strong, like, qualities about women, like compassion is a strength, nurturing is a strength. Having those things kind of gendered were very confusing for me. Like, I didn't
Hmm.
understand why I had to wear my hair long. Like, why couldn't I have short hair? Why did I get teased because I wanted to
Right.
wear pants and like a button up? Um, and so I learned very early on that like I identified a lot with boys, and so I thought, well, then I should be one, right? Like, did God make a mistake with me? And my parents were amazing, and they were like, no, God doesn't make mistakes. Like,
Right.
God
Right.
made you just the way that you are. And in about fifth grade, I was like, oh, that boy's cute. And I, put my hair in a fountain top. And I was like, but that was my choice. That was my decision. And like, and then I went throughout, this kind of journey. But in terms of like my identity, really acknowledging like, okay, I am a girl, I'm a woman, but like, I can do these other things. And I'm not bound to the constraints of what our culture or society does. And like we talked about,
Hmm.
playing a lot of male dominated sports.
Right.
And then as I got older and got involved in the arts community, really digging into some of these narratives and stories and playing roller derby and being around a lot of queer individuals, I felt very connected. And also being a Christian and growing up in, religious culture, there was
Hmm.
a conflict there. And so, you know, producing a film, Extraction USA, which centers around a single mom who
Hmm.
then, gets into a relationship with another woman. And it was really about digging into that character and really like, I relate with this way more than I'm like,
Right.
judging this. And it was a huge exploration for me. And, coming to a point in my life where I'm like, can I not be all these things? And is it worse to conceal that and to lie about it and to not acknowledge that. And I realized it was. And I don't want
unhealthy to
yeah.
suppress those feelings, isn't it? Because eventually, you know, it's like having a disease. You suppress them, something's got to happen to them, right? You know, how are they just not going to exist? I mean, you know, it's such an important part of us that, you know, to deny it is damaging, I think.
And I think that's where it's like, what are we afraid of?
Right.
And and for me, like being in the queer community and the church community, it's like there's such a desire to be right or to affirm, like you have to affirm me and you have to like, and I'm like, no,
right.
This, you just have to accept that I exist and I am this way. And it's not about being right. It's about going, okay, what is honest? What is real? How can I connect with communities and people around me? And then now let's love people and let's be kind and let's share food or share resources or encourage someone else. And suddenly you're like, what are we really fighting about here? And I think it really comes over which is stronger, love or fear. And being like growing up reading the Bible multiple times, there's enough do not be afraids for every day of the year that I know that the God that I serve and the God that I love is a God of love and not fear. And so I think about when I live my life, am I opening myself up to increasing love, or am I closing myself off out of fear and choosing the higher path?
Right. You mentioned food there, and I know as a dietitian, we didn't talk about this, but are you a king cook?
No, that's a misconception. That's like, oh my gosh, that's so funny because like food, nutrition, and food science, I understand. It doesn't make me a chef.
Practical, right?
Culinary school and nutrition and food science are a little bit different. But honestly, it was my minor in health psychology that was really powerful for me, understanding that we can know a lot, but if we're not at a place where we're ready to change, it doesn't matter how much we know. We have to be very patient and gracious and take small steps and have support along that way. And that's really how transformation in a healthy direction helps. So,
okay, fair enough. All right. Well, we talked on the podcast about you just finishing your first film as a director, and now, Miss Johnson, what next?
Well, so we finished the filming of it, but I'm still going through all the day's proxy footage and sending notes to the editor for the post-production process, because then we go into the editing phase and then the packaging and the marketing and distribution phase to get it out into the audience, which is what a filmmaker does. They make a film that other people can see. You want to tell a story to as many people as possible. And so we want to make the best film we can. So I'm working on that with our producer and editor. But then I'm constantly auditioning, usually around 10 auditions a week, which is basically, if you think about interviewing for 10 jobs a week,
that's
and getting one of those jobs, constantly submitting for projects, auditioning, seeing what other stories that I care about that are out there that I want to be a part of. I'm reaching out to friends, or they'll reach out to me and say, hey, we need, a crew member, or we need an AD or a producer. And then I'm like, okay, what do you need? And getting networked into those projects. So professionally, always on the hustle. But until this A Tree Falls in the Forest is out to audiences, I'm not considering writing another film until this one is told. So, yeah.
Bucket list. What's on that?
Oh, that's good. I do have one.
I'm just thinking, with all your different hats, and also personally, right? I mean, things that you want to do with your family and, places you want to go and all the rest of it, and how you fit all that into life. How do you?
Oh, man. You know what? I think it's every day I wake up, I do yoga, I do prayer and meditation. I kind of get centered as part of my morning routine. And then go, okay, this is what I'm going to take on today, and choosing an attitude of I can, and then I will. I think that's kind of how I start my day. And I'm like, I'm not alone in that. I've got, like we talked about, like the God of the universe is like, okay, go for it. So we talked about ancestry. I'd love to go to Ireland and Germany and kind of visit my home countries back there and visit. And then professionally, I have 2 outlines for 2 different films in terms that I have drafted. And one is, a several years down the line type of film. It's pretty big budget, so I'm being patient with that. And the other one is kind of a crossing the bridge between that faith and sexuality type story that I feel like will be very difficult to finance. So it'll have to be self-financed. So I'm kind of making those career steps to the point where, I've proven myself as a director, as an actor, as a producer, where people feel like, I want to get in on this project. So those are kind of down the line 2 film projects that I have on the bucket list. But
lots of possibilities, right? And then you'll think of some more,
Yeah, probably.
Awesome. Leanne, thank you so much for taking time to do this, being on the podcast and staying with me on the after show. Course. It's been fun, and the best of luck with all of your projects.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate that so much. Thanks for having me.